Great. Well, it gives me absolute pleasure to welcome you all to the event this evening. My name is Michael Diamond. I'm a clinical assistant professor of marketing at NYU School of Professional Studies and serve as the academic director of the Integrated Marketing and Communications Department at the Division of Programs of Business within the school. And I am particularly thrilled to welcome you tonight to really the first certainly in a while that I can remember, an event where we are hoping to give you some kind of flavor of what the experience is like inside a classroom with two of our distinguished faculty. And we've chosen to do two mini classes around social media. And you're going to have an opportunity, I think, to see them, see that story told and animated through two very different lenses. And it will give you, I believe, a good sense of the range of programming and the quality of the faculty and the range of approaches that people adopt. So it really is my pleasure to introduce these two wonderful adjunct faculty members. Robin Kollner, who teaches in our program, is a founder and CEO of Digistar Media. And Digistar Media is a digital marketing and social communications agency. Robin has had experience working in marketing and comms across agencies like McCann and distinguished brands like American Express and Citibank. Tom, too, is a very well-loved and much practiced adjunct faculty with us, someone with whom I've collaborated directly on a number of initiatives and really committed to our students. He actually has a new book just come out called The Big Leap. And it deals with a number of these ethical questions, which is actually going to address in his overview and his take on social media. Tom, too, is a very distinguished marketing advertising executive, leading all sorts of strategic initiatives, direct marketing initiatives, etc., agencies for some of the major brands around the world. So delighted to welcome both Tom and Robin this evening. And then we are also joined by two very adept members of our advising team, our academic advising team. For those of you who are planning on joining our program, interested in joining our program, the academic advising team is absolutely a central resource for you. And we're joined tonight by Mayinda Bakaj and also by Eli Diaz. And they'll stick around for questions at the end, specifically about the admissions process. If at any point during the course of the presentations you have questions, then I want to encourage you to look down the bottom of the Zoom screen and you'll see a Q&A, two speech bubbles. Pop your questions in the Q&A and I will endeavor to moderate them. And I'm joined by my colleague Phil Reeves this evening, and he also will be in and out of questions, and we'll try and hold those towards the end of both sessions. So we'll probably do the two sessions going relatively straight through, I think, and then do questions. But all right, without further ado, I think, Tom, you kick off, is that correct? So I'm going to turn it over to Tom. I wish you all a good evening, and I really hope you glean a lot from what we have to share.
Awesome. Thank you, Michael, for the extraordinarily overblown introduction for me and the very, very accurate one for Robin. Much appreciated. Hello, everybody. Can everyone hear me and see the screen? Excellent. So Michael said a couple of very, I think, interesting things in his introduction. One was that he talked about where this program sits and fits in the great pantheon of NYU, and he mentioned the Department of Programs and Business. And I think one of the things that you will find, having taught here 12, 13 years now, is that it is a business school. And this is a degree, marketing degree or a PR degree in integrated marketing or PR within the context of what we like to think of as a marketing MBA, as far as I can tell. And I think it's much more actionable and I think more hireable than a typical MBA because of its specific approach to applied business solving. And I think one of the things that Michael mentioned is some of the initiatives we've worked on before, and one of the businesses that we consulted with as part of the program in the not too distant past was a pharmaceutical company from which we birthed this idea, this strategic idea of what we've been calling real social. And it frames the way that in the course social media and the brand that this lecture and this mini masterclass is pulled from, in my course, it frames the entire course, this idea of a more organic, a more human-based type of marketing that solves business problems. One of the conceits of the Big Leap, the book that I've just recently published, was to suggest a different kind of marketing based upon a different kind of businessing. So I think that takes a leap, especially if you're going to try to convince anybody. And I remember Michael and I first had this conversation 3 years ago when he thought, well, ethics, marketing, business, I don't know. Is it at a stretch, Kenan? And he was right, and it still is. But the conceit here is it, yes, possible, we say. And so a better capitalism, I think, is the framing for a more ethical type of businessing that leads to a completely new type of, very, very boringly, we might refer to as value marketing. And social is this thing that fell from the sky about 10, 12, 15 years ago as a kind of marketing we never had before. And we believe it is the potential, it becomes the crucible. A different kind of social marketing becomes a crucible for a better capitalism. And it's grounded in a different kind of business behavior, okay? So what we like to imagine is that the thing that's going to make it distinguished from other, competitive types of social marketing and media is that it is grounded in deep, deep ethics. In other words, it is grounded in what ethics, as the dictionary defines it, as a system of values. Second, we'll talk about a case of Patagonia, one of my favorite cases. There aren't a lot of them, and then one of my favorite ones because, to me, they're one of those companies that just simply and singularly commits to a very particular system of values, and they hire by it, and they train by it, and they promote, and they incentivize, and they reward by it. And you end up with a different kind of business, a different kind of company, because you're organized around a very specific set of values. And in this case, it drives the practical decision-making of everything we do, all right? The nature of ultimate value and the standards by which human actions inside the company can be judged right or wrong is this new framing. And it's the conceit of the book that I recently published called The Big Leap: An Ethics of Insight, which says that if we want to create true competitive value and advantage and growth and acceleration for our businesses, for our brands, it's going to take a different ethical approach to how we treat each other, how we treat our customers, how we treat the market, how we treat suppliers, how we treat all stakeholders. And we believe that it's the only real way to say, okay, honestly and ethically and authentically, how are we going to spend the $100 million, $200, $400, $700 million worth of a marketing budget for a large global brand, which I've had the luck and good fortune over the last 35 years to once in a while have some sort of effect on how they invest and where they invest and why they invest and for whom they invest their marketing. This kind of marketing, this more real social marketing, this better businessing behavior that is manifest in the form of a more ethical social, has the capacity for creating an immense amount of competitive, advantageous business value. And we believe that accessing these social economies of users, of customers, of prospects, of stakeholders, with our value, with our message, with our stuff, with our products, with our behavior, creates and accelerates and amplifies a different kind of social currency. So this is the big idea: is we as a business with our marketing begin to inhabit these social economies of our key stakeholders at one at a time, 2 at a time, 20 at a time, and become and create social currency with them in these social economies. And we make stuff that the right person cannot help but share. So one of the keys to all of the lectures and which is as much thinking and doing as we do inside of social media and the brand in this course, have to do with driving very specific business impacts. And in the context of real social, in the context of a better capitalism, this literally becomes a business ontology. This is what meaning and being, how meaning and being collide inside our business. What's that look like? Well, one of the interesting things about Patagonia, and why I like to use their cases, is that they don't PR their interesting news. They don't go out and tell everybody, look what we just did. You know, you saw the Fearless Girl or whatever that State Street, one of the more egregious investment banks decided to try to paper over their bad practices when it comes to hiring and promoting and rewarding women inside their executive ranks. So they come up with this. They hire an agency, come up with this ridiculous, very, very compelling, at least, and entertaining campaign about Fearless Girl, when in fact it's the opposite of their ethics. Patagonia doesn't do that. Patagonia just behaves according to a very specific set of values that they all agree on, from the CEO down to the people in the retail stores. And in this case, they decided that investment banks like State Street were not the best partners, because their new, way of being in the world, their new business ontology was based upon, saving the home planet. And they run that test, that litmus, against all the people they hire, all the partners they work with, and all of the kinds of sponsors they might want to invite into co-branding. And they looked at that list of people they were currently doing co-branding with, and they said, well, these banks aren't it. If you've lived in New York in the last 7, 8, 9, 10, 15 years, and you will have known these we call them, we used to call them, investment bros or downtown bros, but these guys were walking around with these co-branded, fleece vests, and not so much anymore because of this. And in fact, Patagonia just did it quietly. They sent letters out to the partners, and then partners got all upset, and they, eventually CBS News figures it out, and they call someone at Patagonia, and Patagonia says, we're not going to talk about that. We don't talk about stuff like this. We just do stuff like this. And people on social making fun of it, people, and it's just how they work. It's how they operate. But it is marketing. Make no mistake. And so this chapter, inside the course, this course, Social Media and the Brand, as well as other courses that I have the good fortune to teach inside of the program, we break off different chapters as insights and discuss them and debate them after everyone's read them, considered, and critiqued them. This chapter, People Like Us Do Stuff Like This, I stole completely from one of my favorite critiquers of business and marketing of the last 25 years, Seth Godin, and one of his books, This Is Marketing, which I believe is from up until I started teaching my text this past summer, I've been teaching his text. And I will continue to do so because it's brilliant and much more brilliant than mine will ever be. But one of his great insights is that all human behavior is an effort for us to situate ourselves and reinforce our role, our place, our value, our belongingness in the context of family, in the context of tribe, in the context of our social and our systemic and our cultural bonding. All right. So one of the biggest, bravest things that this leap entails is that you have to look around the table and look at your products, look at your service, look at your value, and look at at the world and say, look, we're not for everybody. And then figure out who you are for and why you matter, and relentlessly pursue them. And so admitting that the bravery and honesty and authenticity that comes from admitting we're not for everybody, and then figuring out who it is we are for and why we matter, is the singular task of activating this insight about people like us do stuff like this. And the first step there is finding your fans. Another great commentator, marketing strategy guy, Kevin Kelly. Yeah, I know, another old white guy like me. But anyway, we're not all gone yet. And some of us still have some interesting ideas, I think. But he said a true fan, he said, look, if you're a maker, if you're a rock star, a musician, or you're an artist, or you're a potter, or you're a teacher, you're fine. You can live on 1,000 people that can't not buy whatever you make. You can raise a family, you can live a healthy life. You're not gonna make a fortune, but find those 1,000 people and start with the true fans, the people that will drive 200 miles to hear you sing. That's what we've got to do as marketeers. That's what we have to do as brand managers. That's what we have to do, I think, as social media marketers, is to find those fans and then figure out how to connect with them. One of the great things we got from Godin is his great advice. He says, there's only 1,000 people. I don't care if you're MasterCard. I don't care if you're Coca-Cola. I don't care who you are. But every single morning when your marketing team wakes up and goes to work, there's only 1,000 people that really matter to you. Act like it. And what he meant by that provocatively was, if you make those 1,000 people so ridiculously, overwhelmingly satisfied or happy or excited about whatever it is you just did, said, or made, they will find 3 more people, 2 more people for you. And this becomes exponential very quickly. And you know, I use a tool called Talkwalker to help try to find some of these people. This is just one person. It shows you if everybody finds 3 people for you or 20 people for you, why focusing on those people that matter and why is the key to exponential return on the investment that you make in this new kind of marketing. And the great thing that we get is that the reason that people like us do stuff like this is because of how it connects and bonds us to each other. And when I share something, I go, oh my God, these tickets are cheap. Oh my God, this concert's amazing. Oh my God, this restaurant's great. And I'm going to share it with the very particular people who share passion for flying to whatever that country is, or restaurants or their food. And my social currency increases when I share the value with those particular people, and they're connected to me. And all of a sudden the pressure's on me. You know, Marcel Mauss gave us a great insight about the gift economy. And we spent a lot of time in this class going through what that means and the implications for accessing that gift economy humbly with our brand, with our value. Because why we bond amongst each other is because we belong with and for and to each other. And our job as these new real social brand marketeers working towards a better capitalism is to find these little pods of people, find who's leading the attention and the value, and connect with them first. Okay, advertising cannot do this. One of the great challenges I have is constantly in my consulting work and in Madison Avenue, Global Madison Avenue, is to convince folks, look, can we do something a little different this time than measured media with this insight? So the job is, for a real social, for a better capitalism, is go out and find a really fresh, deep insight and do something different with it. And you don't get stuff like, you know, the famous debacle that Pepsi got, you know, trying to attach themselves to Black Lives Matter, okay, in one of the one of the most upside down, idiot applications of a smart insight that I've ever seen. You can do it as long as you let the people like us do stuff like this, do that advertising for you. We teach side by side. We teach the fire case, you know, which is a great debacle a couple of years ago, the hustle that went nowhere with the orange block, side by side with the ice bucket challenge of ALS. And the ice, and when I think when many of my colleagues teach this case of ALS, the ice bucket challenge, which is already 6 or 7 years old, and I apologize for the ancientness of this case, but it's a fantastic case up until Bill Gates and the news gets a hold of it. But the real insight around the ALS case is up until that moment, it's already going very, 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 very well and targeted, you know, one little rhizome at a time, one little pod of people that connect to each other, and it's jumping over. Oh, one of my favorite parts, if you look at this case, and there's a video here linked to, and I think you'll all have access to the deck. You can see when the case study on the ALS challenge was this woman here, Jeanette Sinertia, and her husband, Anthony. She did this for him. You know, he suffered from ALS, and she describes, there was this guy, Pete Freites or something, and my network connected to him by one person. And when it jumped across to his network, all of a sudden these exponential network effects started to take over, all organically, all human, all based upon this insight that people like us do stuff like this. And it's one of my favorite cases. And I don't count all the 20 million people that happened after, the Bill Gates. I'm concerned with getting my students and my colleagues and myself to focus on that magic moment that you have to engineer organically to get people to share it, because their social currency increases when they do. Memes are we all call memes. We have this idea of what memes mean, but memes are very interesting. And I'm not saying let's go out and become viral and make memes. I'm saying that understanding why memes are shared and why memes are important, how memes operate, is really important to this kind of marketing, because they're like these subversive, dog whistles. Because you ever see a meme and you're like, I don't get it. What is why? And then whoever showed you the meme says, yeah, of course you don't, and walks away. And because you don't get a meme that you're not going to get. Memes are for very particular people, and we share them with those people because it connects us. That dog whistle connects us. All of this means that our marketing goes this way instead of this way. Okay, advertising is arboreal. Advertising is hierarchical. Advertising is broadcasting. This kind of real social, better capitalism, business behavior marketing goes like this. It leaps from one little synapse to another across these little networks as a rhizome works, sprouting out different nodes and different roots in different directions, but always horizontally. One of my, I'll bore my students every single semester with at least 2 or 3, chapters that name check my favorite, thinkers and doers in the world of human desire, Gilles Deleuze and Félix Guattari, and their books, their epic books, Capitalism and Schizophrenia. Volume 1 was Anti-Oedipus, Volume 2, 1,000 Plateaus, where one of their most important concepts that they deliver is this idea of the rhizome. And Michael, I've talked with Michael about this, and he's fascinated, as I am, about the power of applying this concept to our marketing. Because the broadcaster, it can't be as authentically or insightfully or ethically shared amongst these social economies for people like us, because we do stuff like this, because it's advertising. The conspirator is the one that leaps across those little synapses rhizomatically. The rhizomatic model is that of the conspirator, and this is the brief. The brief is for our marketing, literally, to become conspiratorial. And so instead of hiring media managers to go out and push a lot of posts on TikTok and Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and Snapchat, what we suggest is a circle of collaborators, of conspirators, a strategic function, a creator function, a distribution community management function, an analytics function, all day long, working like this in circles, conspiratorial circles, finding 3 people at a time, 10 people at a time, and getting them to go out and help us find those people. If you've ever lived in New York on a Thursday afternoon, the past 10, 15 years, you will have, or 12 years, you'll have wondered, what is that line down there on Broadway? Now it's up on Bowery, I think, out inside of Supreme. And again, it's like a meme. You don't know why they're waiting for, then you don't get it. It's not for you. But what this brand did when it started out was just to make very specific stuff for very specific people, and it never lost sight of that very specific value. And they've just done it, and not with advertising, and not with, and all their scale comes from word of mouth, as we used to call it. But it's because all they said to themselves in the very beginning was, we're going to figure out who we for, we're going to figure out why we matter, and we're never going to let us stray from that, making stuff for people that matter to us for a very particular reason, because we matter to them. And they will be compelled to spread the good word, because their social currency in that particular social economy of their people whom they take this great message of value to increases. So all boats rise in this time if we can figure out how to turn this kind of marketing into a completely different kind of differentiated business behavior. And so this becomes the everything brief, all right? The idea that this is, the first task is insight, deepening. And we use research. Many of times in my practice, we will use ethnographic observational research like deep listening, digital ethnography, or real ethnography, or video ethnography. But we will go zooming in a particular culture of people and name desire. And that's the insight. And then we brief with it, then we plan with it, then we bake it into everything we do. And this is what we mean when we say that insights have the potential, have the power to become generative in themselves. So that's a little snapshot of what we like to suggest as this leap towards a better capitalism via a real social marketing. And we invite you to join us.
Well, excellent. And thank you, Tom. I'm definitely ready to leap with you and excited by the journey. I do think that what you've shared with us, exhibits one of the reasons why I think an education at a graduate school like NYU, and particularly School of Professional Studies, is so valuable, because while you can sign up for a course online to learn quote unquote social media, you really need the broader context and critical thinking and capacity to ask questions and to challenge ideas. As a marketer or a PR executive, that will actually be a mark of your impact greater than your technical skills. And so, you know, working with faculty like Tom and Robin, working at a school of, you know, studying at a school of professional studies, I think it really gives you that broader context, and it's definitely exhibited in this fascinating discussion, you know, about ethics and rhizomes and other very apt and important analogies. So Tom, we're going to thank you for your piece. Hang out. We're going to shift over to Robin and give Robin a chance to, you know, share some of her thinking and approach to teaching and talking about social media, and then we'll come back for Q&A.
Okay, it's great to be here, and I welcome all of you. And one of the reasons why I am so excited to be working in the public relations and communications area is because of the evolution that's happened over the last decade and over the last 100 years and over the last several hundred years. So if you think about the evolution of public relations and communications, we can start with cave drawings, because that was the first time that human beings found a way to take a message and provide it to a larger group of people. Then, of course, we evolved into publishing and newspaper, video and film, television, and today the internet. And of course, one of the biggest impacts that's ever happened to the public relations and communications area is social media. When I talk about social media, it's so easy for people to think it's all about promotion. And as Professor Keenan had said, it's not advertising, and you can't push messages at people and expect them to believe them. So it's really fascinating to pay attention to some of the other benefits that social media offers. And this is especially important for people in the communications and public relations area. Social media provides an incredible opportunity to learn. Not only does it amplify a message that a company may have, but it helps them reach that magic audience, that the 1,000 fans, the people who are going to carry the mantle for them, who are going to advocate for them, for that brand, and develop relationships. So all of this is a benefit. You can research, you can learn, you can listen, you can engage with your customers and clients, you can build relationships, and you can establish relationships that actually lead to influence. So all of these are the important areas with social media that are often overlooked. And where, in fact, does the new world of PR fit in the digital ecosystem? Well, it actually fits everywhere. It fits both in the development and the interactivity that goes on in a website. It fits in understanding how to optimize in search, because people still need to become visible on the internet. It factors into blogs and how people will often, or brands and companies will often turn to the PR and communications folks to write the blogs, to create better blogs, to optimize them for search, to put them through social media. And that is true as well for all kinds of content, which is moving, as we all know, fast and furiously into the video spectrum. It's also critical for email marketing programs and interactions that the PR and communications department may have with social media. And I know that at NYU, we're particularly focused on how all of these aspects of the digital ecosystem integrate successfully with each other. And that's a critical component to understanding both the marketing and the communication side. How well can we integrate, and how well can we work together, and how well can all of these pieces work together to help bridge the gap between the brand and the customer? So when you think about where social media fits in all this picture, it's smack dab in the middle. It actually affects everything. And it affects everything if we adopt Professor Keenan's approach. It definitely affects that inculcation of a value system and how we can actually develop the right products and services, how we communicate through our website, develop a mobile strategy, put through appropriate customer service, how we certainly talk to our public in public relations, and advertising, of course, and how that messaging can become more authentic, more real, and more involved with what the message is that our customers really want to hear. So one of the things that we focus on a lot in the program is this concept of the PESO model, which was developed by Jeannie Dietrich, who is someone who is well known in the public relations area and has codified this particular approach, where no longer is public relations relegated to a corner or a certain corner of a floor, and they're supposed to just provide some kind of canned message to the public, or they're just supposed to provide press releases to the traditional media. Now it's critical that the PR and communications role really be involved intricately in all of the areas of marketing. And certainly not only the paid areas, but that which is owned by the company, which is often defined as the content that is created by a particular brand or company. And where does social fit? Well, social also interacts in all of these areas. And our goal in the marketing and communications area is to get that organic earned attention and earned media attention, which is harder and harder today, but certainly one of those goals. And when we think of that bucket of shared, it's really things that are our messaging and our communication and how it transfers from each of these circles, how we can get it where the outside world is going to take our message and virally spread it for us without paying for it. And that often happens through the realm of social media. So in fact, a good example of this is when there was a very popular television show last winter, which came out, a sequel to Sex and the City. And one of the opening frames of that particular show had one of the lead actors, Chris Noth, on a Peloton bike. He actually wanted to take a class on Peloton and not go with Sarah Jessica Parker to his wife at the time, Carrie, to an event. So he gets on the bicycle, has a heart attack. And that is a PR night, or was a PR nightmare for Peloton. So what actually happened was Ryan Reynolds is the advertising agency that works with Peloton, and Peloton came out instantly with this particular message on social media. Dara Treseder is the CMO at the time of Peloton, saying, look, we're all healthy and cardiovascular exercise is really important to be healthy. And seeing these actors in the roles and in that frame on social media happened almost instantly through what we used to call the war room approach. And in fact, it's kind of clever because the stories that were told about this in the press are really that this particular social media content went out so fast that it was faster than Carrie in the show was able to call 911 to get help for her husband. So that's the power of using social media. Now, I purposely put this slide in here just to give a framework for understanding what we teach, how we do it, and how it's important to use a framework in understanding what we're supposed to create as marketing and communications professionals. I'm not going to go step by step through this, but the most important aspect is that when you develop a plan, that plan should really be defined by who your target audience is. Who are you trying to reach, and what do they care about? What message will be compelling to them? Not what do you want to create that's fabulous and wonderful, but what's they're going to think is fabulous and wonderful. And we go through a lot of the methodologies that are involved with how do you monitor what goes on, what are the analytics that are involved, and how can we learn from all that happens in this to make a better plan going forward. Because if there's one thing that happens with social media, and that's that it is a long, ongoing process, and that continually requires refinement. It is not a one and done aspect. So let's take a look at a case. I purposely picked a hospitality case for a couple of reasons. One, I felt that everyone can relate to that. We've all stayed at hotels, probably by now. Many of us have stayed at one of the 18 brands that Hilton Hotels, that's in the Hilton Hotel family. And also because of what we've all just endured over the last 2.5 years, many of us are very anxious to go traveling again. So the hospitality industry understands this, and they have also suffered a tremendous amount because so many of us weren't traveling for a couple of years. So let's take a look at what Hilton Hotels has done. It's a big global brand. Hopefully you've all stayed at one of them. So over the last few years, pre-pandemic, you would often find many hotel brands creating content spread throughout social media and in paid advertising that reflects fantasy trips, gorgeous locales and beautiful resorts where the viewer feels that I wish I could go there. I hope I get to go there one day. And this is my fantasy, or my, shall we say, hashtag Hilton story. And then the pandemic hit. And then should they continue to show places like that? No. So luckily, Hilton Hotels did a very, very quick pivot, and they came up recognizing that some people still had to travel as the illnesses were spread differently throughout the globe, and that they knew that to be relevant to the consumers at that particular point in time, they need to focus on cleanliness, on safety with cleanliness. And they actually partnered with Lysol brand to create this kind of messaging and campaign. And so this was found on their Twitter account. And then what? Then they continued, as the pandemic continued, to get better and better at explaining this concept of you can feel safe with us. And I actually stayed at a Hilton Curio hotel when I was visiting my daughter during the pandemic, and they had that adhesive band there on the door, and it made me feel so much safer that I knew that that place was clean. Now, this is an example of an individual who actually took a picture on her own and sent and was sending it to Hilton Hotels saying, you know, this is what my husband looks like. This is what his office looks like. He needs an upgrade. And Hilton Hotels responded with this fabulous picture, you know, with a superimposed resort scene from their Boca Raton hotel. So they were listening to their customers and recognizing what they needed to hear. So that is smart marketing. That is thinking about the customer and creating messaging that's relevant. And if anything, we've learned that this year, 2022, is clearly the year of the customer. So now, when I was asked to present tonight, the same exact day, I was reading something in the industry press, actually in Advertising Week, about Hilton Hotels' latest campaign, brand new campaign. So it's only about 2 weeks old. And I thought, wow, this is going to be a great idea to talk about, because I'm sure that whatever they do, they will then support it with very interesting content through social. So let me show you what their advertising is. This is a particular piece that has not only been in social media, but in paid advertising as well.
Where should we put all your luggage, Miss Hilton?
In the connecting room, please. Sliding travel tip number 48. Book confirmed connecting rooms for an extra large closet. Or, you know, for your family.
When you need a connecting room for whatever reason, it matters where you stay. Hilton for the stay.
So I assume many of you know who she is. She is actually Paris Hilton, and Paris Hilton is the great granddaughter of Conrad Hilton, who is definitely, relatable and related. And she's also a popular influencer. She just recently got married. And if anything, people love to watch her. However, she's talking in slang a little bit, slivering tip, which is really slaying living, which is something that is very popular. I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint in a second, everybody, which is very, very popular on TikTok. So I thought to myself, wow, this is going to be perfect. Let's take a look at what happened on social media with Hilton Hotels and see how they have taken this messaging, maybe showed 6 or 7 different ways that they have been, wonderful at supporting this idea of come and stay with us as a family. We've got multiple rooms for you that are connecting and easy to control so your family can feel comfortable. We've got pet-friendly hotels. We have hotels where you can decide how you want your room cleaned, all of the different factors that are now important to people post-pandemic. So let's see what we found out. When I looked at Hilton Hotels online and on social media, look what I found. I found a series of outrageous comments. Criticism, criticism, criticism. Feel free to cancel all my honors accounts and remove me from your system. Thanks to Hilton Atlanta, we will no longer be staying with you. Hilton's deceptive advertising regarding the price match guarantee, etc. This is a perfect example of how messaging does not align with what is actually happening. And they could learn from inculcating a value system, as Professor Keenan had mentioned. So this is clearly not only a missed opportunity, but a public relations challenge and almost a crisis. So they could have done so much on social media. And I ask you all, what advice would you give to the Hilton senior management? Now, we're not in a place that perhaps I can call on you. Certainly you're not in my class yet, but hopefully you'll think about this. And hopefully, if you're with me next semester, we can find a way to bring your ideas to Hilton Hotels to make it a much better system. And one of the ways to find out about what a good idea would be, and those 6 or 7 ideas that I threw out a minute ago about what could be done on social media, is to look at what the competitors are doing. And NYU students actually have access to powerful insights. Some of you may have used this already. Rival IQ, we give a free account to all of our students where you can check on your competitors. So let's take a look at one of the top competitors to Hilton Hotels has done, and that would be Marriott. So Marriott has actually, at the same week that Paris Hilton launched her campaign here on her nice commercial, Marriott's hotels looked at, and this is, I believe the Instagram account. Yes, the Instagram account. And they're talking about leveraging micro influencers. We talk a lot about influencer marketing in our classes because influencer marketing has become a very pivotal and a very, very important aspect to how social media is working. They are asking, in this case, open your mind and let travel inspire you. Marriott Bonvoy, which is their frequent travel program, is searching for 3 TikTok correspondents. So they're actually on Instagram asking for TikTok correspondents to travel the world and create content. Now, when we talk about micro influencers, those are not Paris Hilton. That's not Paris Hilton. She's got over 1 million followers. These are people that might have several thousand, up to 10,000 followers, but they have a very powerful voice within a certain niche. And so it's very interesting that that's what Marriott has chosen to do. And by the way, I've been following Marriott for many years, and Marriott has done this an awful lot. They have gone to individual travel bloggers over the last decade. So this has been an incredibly successful program for them. And in fact, influencer marketing this year is estimated to be a $15 billion industry. That's globally. The US, it's estimated to be about $5 billion. So it's important when we're thinking of the role of public relations and communications to understand that there's an important aspect of that, which is how do you structure appropriate influencer relationships? Who is the right influencer? Who should be used? Who represents the brand in a true and authentic way? Who is believable? Who carries the same value system as the brand? What you're seeing in the picture is kind of fun and interesting. Ryan, by the way, is a multimillionaire. He started when he was 7 years old, and his parents had him unpacking toys on YouTube. And he now has his own, obviously his own channel, Ryan's World. And there is no toy that it is introduced in the market that doesn't get sent to Ryan first. On the far lower right, you have Danielle Bernstein. who is a famous fashion influencer. And on the left, you have Cardi B. We'll call that a celebrity. So what else did I notice on Marriott's social media? I noticed that they innovated with a concept of providing unique experiences. And that's another thing that we are going to focus on in our classes is experiential marketing. This happens to be an opportunity that they put out on social media as a contest. And if you win, you can win a stay in a curiosity room designed by the speakers for TED Talks. Okay, TED Talks are these intellectual talks that have spread throughout the world that stand for technology, education, and design. And you get to stay in a really interesting room designed by a group of TED Talk presenters. So that is tapping into the excitement of experiential marketing and innovation. And in summary, I too chose a quote. Actually, it's a quote by Seth Godin that I changed. Marketing is no longer about the stuff that you sell. He used to say, make about the stuff that you sell, but about the stories you tell. And I'm going to end now with a story. And this is the story of a little boy. He clearly is upset. Well, why is he upset? He's upset because, as many of you may remember, when you were children and you would go to stay at a hotel or a friend's house or a relative's, you sometimes brought that little comfort toy, a stuffed animal, perhaps, or a doll. And that little animal would stay with you and you would sleep with this animal. So this is what happened to the little boy. He and his family went to a Ritz-Carlton hotel in Florida, in Amelia Island, Florida. And they had a wonderful stay for a week. And in the car, on the way to the airport, on the way home, he remembered that he left his toy giraffe, Joshy, at the hotel. He slept with him and it was probably left in the bed. So he's crying hysterically and his father has to call the hotel. And fortunately, the person who answers the phone grabbed the general manager. And the father said to the general manager, "My son is crying hysterically. He left Joshy the giraffe behind. We cannot turn around. We're going to miss our flight. Please help me." So the manager said, "Hold on. Let me check with the housekeeping staff." So they checked with the housekeeping staff and they said, "We found Joshy." But he hears the manager hears the boy crying in the background. And he says, "You know what? Check in 5 minutes if you can open up on your phone our Facebook page. And we have an idea. The idea came from my employees of how to stop your son from crying." So the father said, "Now that would be a great idea because he can't get Joshy because it's going to get sent parcel UPS and it's going to take a couple of days to get back to where they were going." And so this is what the team at the hotel did. They posted on social media that Joshy the giraffe just wanted a few extra days of vacation at the Ritz-Carlton. And by the way, Ritz-Carlton is a Marriott property. So they took pictures of Joshy sunbathing and Joshy at the spa. And then this is what you normally would see as a promotional image, right? That's how we started this conversation. But that's not what they posted. They posted Joshy playing 18 holes of golf on the golf course. And what you see on the far right is a Huffington Post blog story about this. This is where I actually got the pictures. Now, I heard about this particular incident at an industry conference where the public relations and advertising agency for Ritz-Carlton admitted that they did not create this campaign, that this was done by the employees of that particular hotel. So I thought that this was such an amazing story, right? And then I needed the picture, so I went to the Huffington Post article. And what you probably can't see, but I can share with you, is this story came many years ago. This was 2012. Now, I'm still talking about this. That is an example of how earned media attention can work. And through viral spread, and it is a PR win, okay? And believe me, anytime you go to a hotel from now on, you're going to remember this Ritz-Carlton story. And finally, it's important for all of us, and I know that my colleagues are probably doing this as well, to say, what does the future hold for all of this? How can we make public relations and communications work better? How can it be more authentic? How can people not call it stunt driven? And what's going to happen with the metaverse? And so fortunately, NYU School of Professional Studies has a metaverse initiative. And that initiative will allow all of the faculty and the students to stay up to date, up to the minute with all of the research that's happening and all of the developments that are happening. So we'll be able to incorporate this in all of our courses. I look forward to seeing all of you. Hopefully you'll be in our class. And I think now it's time for questions. And if any of you have questions of me, please feel free to reach out. This is how you can find me. Thanks so much.
Fantastic, Robin. Wonderful, wonderful. And, you know, I think you exhibited one of the foundational strengths, both of marketers, PR executives, and teachers, which is storytelling. You know, that wonderful arc of a story that we can weave, which resonates and, you know, somehow situates itself in our noddle and sticks around, as you said. So I want to thank you for that. It was really an interesting exposition and a good example of, as you sort of set it up, the kind of questions and issues, real world, practical, applied questions and issues that our students get to enjoy. If there are any questions for our speakers, I'm going to encourage folks to put them in the Q&A. There was a good dialogue earlier that I don't want to shortchange, so maybe Tom, I'll have you respond. Linda Duquette, actually, one of our faculty and collaborating in lots of different ways at the school, had a question sort of about the example with Patagonia and perhaps the finance bros, but this whole idea that Cialdini, Bob Cialdini, the famous, he's a professor who writes about persuasion and techniques of persuasion. He talks about this idea of consensus building, and which is essentially sort of social proof. So maybe you want to comment a little bit about what role you see, both good and bad, in the idea of social proof as a driver for a lot of marketing or even human behavior.
Well, it's a good question. In fact, it's interesting when you think about consensus. Consensus, I'm not quite sure actually inherent to the dynamic of social economies that consensus is an important factor, because I believe that one of the insights we get from Godin in one of his books actually is that this kind of business behavior, this kind of focused value making for very particular people is actually about exclusivity. It's actually about saying, look, we've got something very particular to do and say, and we believe something very, very much aligned together about a certain thing, but it's not based upon consensus as much as it's based on, I think, conspiracy. So it's an interesting way of understanding conspiracy, maybe, but consensus, I think consensus drains energy oftentimes out of focus, and maybe consensus is not necessary. Consensus sounds like a very corporate kind of approach to marketing, and I think the radically ethical marketing has to be unleashed, and consensus may not be anything more than a nominal constraint against risk.
Yep, or a race to the bottom. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
That's a fascinating perspective, actually. That's one we could spend a lot of time on. We've done some work recently looking at the importance of sort of these quite specific values that consumers have and the brands that espouse them. Yep. I have a question for Robin. One of our participants tonight asked a question about where you would see the biggest challenges for social media in the future. So what sort of concerns do you have as a practitioner? What concerns have students shared with you? You know, where do you have some concern about where social media is going or how it's being used even today?
Oh, that's a loaded question. It's, you know, there's a lot to think about. On one hand, you've got issues of privacy and how all of these platforms have really monetized our data. And once we pull back from that, if there is such a thing as pulling back from that, I mean, Apple has tried with their ATT program, but then we're going to have less efficient data to work with. And when you have less efficient data to work with, then the paid advertising models are not going to be as successful, which means you're going to have to shift in advertising dollars. You also have all of the aspects that are involved with the negative side of social media. If you noticed, a lot of the hotel chains, not Marriott, but Hilton has had to contend with these complaints. Now, of course, you want to fix your customer service. Some of them are real and some of them may not be real. And so, for example, our local news channel 12 here calls me just about every other week to give an opinion on why a murder might have happened with social media, or children in a school are now required. They're actually requiring in high schools and middle schools to have the phones put away during the school day, almost locked away, because people were creating viral videos to try to, by beating each other up, basically, to go viral. So you have the bullying aspect, which is difficult. And finally, you have the push and pull of organic social is challenging in the sense that it isn't working the way it used to. And when something doesn't work the way it used to, then you have to turn to the influencer realm. Then you begin to say, how can we maintain that authenticity when we're paying someone to create content? So the creator economy and the emphasis on creators, and every single platform is moving in that direction, including LinkedIn, to actually pay real hard cold cash to creators and to make organic content even less valuable from the brand's perspective if an influencer is not involved.
Yeah, no, I think that question of authenticity to some extent links to the question of ethics as well. I mean, it's clearly the first way to destroy any sense of authenticity is to act unethically, or to, not deliver on your promises, or to speak with, out of two sides of your mouth, as they say. So I think there are more questions on social media, but I do actually want to give students, if any are interested, a chance to ask questions about the program or admissions into the program. And I'm going to sort of carve out a little space for that. And then we will, maybe we can revert back to some other questions about the content and topic. But our students, are there anybody on who's interested sort of asking a more specific question of our advisors? And if so, we can actually also have you do that live if you want. So maybe you will raise a hand if there's a question. I guess I won't see a raised hand, but if you could at least pop in either chat. You now have the chat's now open if you want to put questions in. And Robin and Tom, feel free if you want to respond, in the chat, you can respond. I see some students asking more direct questions to you, but anybody want to ask questions of Eli or Mayinda? If not, I'm going to probably ask, and you can choose who, Eli and Mayinda, just to say a few quick words about your top tips for applying to the program, or if some things you want to encourage students to think about, what they should be looking out for on the website or something like that. So any questions on admissions? All right, not seeing any coming through. So Eli or Mayinda, whoever wants to take it, just maybe both you could share with us a few thoughts about applying to the program and your experiences working with students.
I can talk a little bit about that. So I would say the first thing to start off with when you're thinking of applying to this program is to take a look at our general program information page that's on the sps.nyu.edu website. That'll just give you a quick overview of what the program looks like. It's not a comprehensive overview, which is why I recommend that you always meet with an admissions counselor or an academic advisor after. But just to get a quick snapshot of what it looks like, I would start there. I'm going to go ahead and pop that link into the chat box right after if you guys wanted to take a look later. And then after that, when you get into contact with the graduate admissions office, you can talk just general application materials information. What are the requirements of the deadlines when you're applying to one of our programs? And then generally from there is where you can then connect with an academic advisor. So it would either be myself, Eli, who is an advisor in the integrated marketing program, and then we have 2 more advisors who also work in our program. You would be connected with either one of us, and then we could talk to you more about more in-depth requirements in the program, what the course structure looks like as you move through the 4 semesters, what it looks like if you're a part-time student, what course substitutions would look like, anything that gets down to the nitty-gritty of the program, you can definitely talk to us about. So that's generally what the process looks like. If you have any questions about that throughout the remainder of this session, feel free to send those in the Q&A box or the chat box, and Eli and I are happy to help you answer those. Otherwise, feel free to reach out to sps.gradadmissions@nyu.edu if you have any questions about applying to our programs.
And Eli, maybe what do you think are some of the top 3 or 4 questions you get from students? There's a lot of international students that join our program. What's your favorite FAQ, let's say?
Yeah, definitely. So thanks for joining us, everyone, tonight. So definitely a lot of the questions that we get are what internship opportunities are within the program, within the Division of Programs and Business. A lot of our students love hands-on experience and doing an internship class or taking advantage of the real world class, which is it mirrors an internship class as well, is a great opportunity to get hands-on experience in the field. I also find a lot of students looking to do cross-enrollment within the Division of Programs and Business, but also within NYU at large. So a lot of our students love NYU Stern. It's a highly respected school along with NYU SPS, of course. So that is a wonderful opportunity to also cross-enroll and get that experience as a graduate student. And I would say, and lastly, being involved, I think being a student, it's all about the college experience. And of course, this is a graduate degree, so it's a bit different than undergrad, but still there's a lot of different opportunities even within INTG, which is Integrated Marketing, and PRCC, Public Relations and Corporate Communications. There are student clubs that are student run, and that's a really great way to network with current students and alumni and make your experience amazing. Because there are a lot of resources at NYU SPS, but also at NYU at large. So it really depends on you, the student, to utilize the services and use us as resources. The same with professors, admin staff. We're all very much here to help and make your experience a great one.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. I think just in the interest and fairness, you know, of the time, both Tom and Robbins and students and others are going to be listening in, I'm going to kind of call us to a close. Meinda has put some links in the chat if anyone's interested in reaching out to her and her colleagues, Eli, about the program. I encourage anyone who's a current student or even prospective student to connect with the Tom and Robin via LinkedIn or one of their social media handles. I'm sure they'll be responsive, mention that you attended this talk or had a chance to listen to the talk. But this idea of the dialogue that we have with our students and our faculty, I think, is also a very key thing. It looks like we have a word from our sponsor here, so let me pivot over there. One of the many things the school offers, and we're very proud of within the integrated marketing department, is certificate courses, and we have a wonderful program around healthcare marketing and communications, and we have an info session coming up, 2 info sessions, one on Wednesday, August 17th and one on August 24th. So if anyone's on the call and is particularly interested in healthcare marketing and communications, which is a very fast growing field and area where there's a lot of demand for savvy marketers who also know the language, not just of business, as Tom was talking about, but also the language of healthcare. This has proven to be a very effective, powerful, and engaging program. So that's one message. And Phil, or Patrick, if there's another, I'm happy to tee it up. So yes, I guess that's the question. You'll get a survey. Anybody who attends the talk or registers for the talk will receive a survey, and we would love to hear your feedback. And certainly, if you're interested, we'd be happy to share your comments as well and amplify them. But please engage with us. The school or the integrated marketing, if you look out for the NYUSBS Integrated Marketing and Communications Department on LinkedIn, you'll find also we have a bi-weekly newsletter called The Pitch, and always good stuff. I think I'm going to invite Robin to contribute, and Tom has done a piece. You know, always good stuff to keep in touch with us. So I want to thank you all. I also want to thank the folks in the background, particularly Patrick Brady, who makes everything go smoothly, and Robin Smith, who's the mind behind all of these things, and the ultimate you know, orchestrator of these interesting and wonderful events. I want to thank both her, Robin, and Patrick too, so Patrick Brady. Anyway, have a good evening. Thank you for spending some time with us. Reach out, lots of opportunities to do so, least of which is through social media. So Robin and Tom, thank you again as ever. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thank
And
you, Michael.
good learning experience. Thank you.